Hello, I am Miss Blost, and today we will be playing planetzoo and attempting to do a one-animal zoo in planetzoo. Guests usually expect to see a whole menagerie of animals for them to enjoy, such as lions and tigers and bears, oh my! But what if we didn't do that? What if there were just one? After watching Ambiguous Amphibian's video, One Animal Zoo in Zoo Tycoon, I was inspired by that video to make my own. That video was inspired by Marcel Voz's video, also One Animal in Zoo Tycoon. So just a lot of inspiration all around, just so much inspiration. I'm doing mine in planetzoo because I own it. I usually play sandbox mode, but I was doing something here for once. So I chose franchise mode, and I named the franchise One Animal Zoo. Creative. And the first zoo of the franchise, First Animal Zoo. Inspiring. I put on some tunes and got to work. I had that amount of money and a dream. Just one animal. I wanted the zoo as small as possible, but staff needed their area, so I had to sort that out before the animal. Planetzoo requires staffing zones, which guests hate seeing. They hate it when they see staff working. So that had to be hidden and tucked away and brought into the planning zone. Maths isn't really my strong suit if you haven't worked that out already. So the barrier wasn't even, but who cares? It was just a boundary I set myself anyway. After working all that for about half an hour, I worked out it was too big and started again. I even selected out a big white ostrich, but goodbye, big white ostrich. This zoo was smaller, so I named this zoo Smaller Animal Zoo to keep us focused on the task at hand. Better. I bought my first animal. The big white bird was back, but not for long. Guests began to enter. Only a small amount at first, but a surprising amount for just a singular ostrich. But it was a shiny, so perhaps that was the drawing. However, even though it was shiny, it was lonely and unhappy. It broke out of its enclosure because it hated hedges apparently. Protesters protested. They paid to get in, so a win from me. I thought because it said group size 1 to 8, up to 1 male, and up to 7 females, that it would be okay on its own. But it was not. And for the second time, we would say goodbye to the big white bird. With the ostrich now gone, it was time for a new animal. The animal needed to be not too big because of the size of our zoo and I didn't want to expand, and needed to be okay by itself and relatively low maintenance. Introducing our newest animal, a big tortoise. A Galapagos tortoise, I believe. As soon as it entered the enclosure, it was happy. Much happier than when the ostrich first entered. Sure, this is a one animal zoo playthrough, and we were on to animal number 2, but it's cool, there only needs to be one of them. I can replace this animal as much as I want, as long as it's only one. Just before we said goodbye to the ostrich, we replaced the back hedge wall to prevent any more escapes with brick wall. However, I don't think that was going to be a problem with this guy. Our next animal, however... We began researching things to make our tortoise even happier. Something we probably should have done with the ostrich. We researched better food, more enrichment toys, and in no time, he was even happier. We even researched drinks because I wanted guests to have the milkshake machine. Guest happiness was great though. It could do with more food and drink, but ignore that. Education was bad too, but I'll get to it. Look, cupcakes! But at times they would complain that the zoo was too small, or there was not much to do. But the zoo was called Smaller One Animal Zoo, It literally said what it did on the tin. Because of the cupcake place, I decided to raise ticket prices in a fruitless attempt to make more money and give the guests the activities they so craved. This drove every single guest away. I mean, this place was dead. It was a ghost town. This made me realize it was time for a more exciting animal. Apparently, the tortoise looked bored, but I mean, it's a tortoise. They don't exactly look thrilled. Losing the tortoise made me sad. I loved that tortoise. We'd been through so much. I'd made it so happy with all the things I'd researched. He'd lived in the zoo way longer than the ostrich. He was like a son to me. But like all children, people get bored of them, and you have to get something new and exciting. To be honest, I'd only gotten the tortoise because the idea of going to a zoo and it just being a big tortoise was funny to me. The same reason that I was tempted by the caiman, but eventually I chose the lynx. For many reasons, but mostly because it was Big Kitty! The kitty presented itself with new challenges. For one, the tortoise didn't do much. It was content plodding around its enclosure, eating and sleeping. The lynx, however, was not. The walls were not high enough and it regularly escaped. Its enclosure wasn't big enough, forcing us to have a full zoo remodel. And it would become stressed often, wanting to hide, because we had not researched the two-way glass yet. Fortunately, I'd learnt some things with my time with the tortoise. No repeat of the ostrich today. To bring the cheapskate guests back, I lowered ticket prices, but this caused me to lose money again. Things cost money, so I tried adding drinks machines, kiosks, and anything for guests to spend money. But these things cost money. If you don't have the money to get the kiosks and drinks machines, how will you gain money off the kiosks and drinks machines? The cycle of zoo poverty. Why start a zoo if you can't afford to run it? Shut up, have you never had a dream before? Despite our money problems, however, our zoo rating was high. We passed every inspection with flying colours. Or just colours. Because our zoo was so small and only had one enclosure, it meant our zoo had high cleanliness and our enclosure was always top-notch. Our education, as mentioned before, was non-existent. We had steps that I had placed since the beginning, but I had not scheduled talks in order for guests to sit down and use them. But guests still did not use them. But this still wasn't enough. I added a machine play thing, talkie boxes, more signs, and this giraffe. But guests just had no idea what they were looking at. Most of them thought they were still looking at the tortoise. I employed another educator to give more talks. But he cost money we just didn't have. And the steps were still not in use. I think at the end of the day, we've all learned that zoos need more than one animal. Not just for the guests' enjoyment, but for the animals too. Perhaps next time I'll try to make the smallest zoo possible. Or maybe just a zoo with just one animal, but lots of them, like a ton of penguins or capybaras. But next time, sandbox, not franchise. If you have any suggestions, why not comment down below, or even give a like, or even subscribe. It super helps me out in lots of ways, but mostly serotonin. I also do other activities, such as Twitch if you find my content too short, or TikTok if you find my content too long. But for now, I have to go eat multiple bowls of Frosties in one sitting. Goodbye!